welcome to our session. We will be talking about how you can use Teams to drive the adoption of other applications in your organization. So that's the whole idea. So we're not going to talk about how to adopt Teams because we kind of think that for this session you already have done that. So everybody is already using Teams. And now let's see how we can use Teams to also onboard other stuff. All right, cool. So that's me. Of course, I want to also talk about my co-host. If she wants to move to the next slide, there she goes. All right. So I want to talk about Corinna. Corinna is an amazing person. And last year I asked her, I popped the big question. I asked her the big question and she said yes. Of course, that big question was, would you like to do a session with me? And she said yes. So I'm so super happy. This is the first one that we're going to do together. I hope there will be many more. I'm not sure she will ever want to do another session with me. It doesn't matter. The point is, Corinna is for me the person when I'm stuck somewhere in Office 365. Corinna is the person that I'm calling because she just knows her stuff. It's crazy how well she knows her stuff. So she's been working for 8 years in this space. She's working at MSG Services, which is an amazing company. They even let their people go to Ignite if there is an Ignite. So that's cool. She's also organizing lots of extra events as well. So there's the SharePoint Saturday in Munich. There's this collab days across the Alps. I heard that the call for speakers was just open. Winter across the Alps, is that right? Am I saying that right? Anyway, she's also doing stuff with some kind of adoption forum. You might have heard of it if you're doing Teams. So that is all cool. Oh, and I'm just seeing that Michael says there's no profanity. Oh, okay. Did you just post that for me? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to keep my swearing to a minimum. Thank you. So that is Corinna. I'm so happy that she's going to do this with me because she's awesome and she's got some really cool demos planned for you as well.
Yeah, so thank you, Marijn, for the great introduction and welcome also from my side. So I would like now to introduce Marijn. Marijn is a Office 365 expert and he's working for over 14 years in this area, and he's also an MVP for Office apps and services. And not only, so he's a productivity coach and doing a lot of coachings, trainings, consulting for his own company, my 365 coach. And he's also doing some podcasts. So he's a podcast hero. He's doing the podcast together with Steve Dalby. If you search for Office 365 Distilled, you will find a lot of stuff and podcasts, of course. And you can also find Marijn on YouTube by blaming the end user. Yeah, so I think, yeah, my short introduction about Marijn was a little bit shorter, but I think you probably already know him and you got it. So let's go to the agenda for today. First of all, we want to talk about state of the affairs. So digital transformation, what means this for us? It's just for a short introduction. And after that, we will take a look on how you can support a project rollout with Microsoft Teams and Office 365 tools. After that, we will take also a look on why you should use Microsoft Teams and not another tool. And we take a deep dive in the Office 365 ecosystem to see what other tools you can use to support adopting an application. We will give you at the end some tips and also a short wrap up about the content we discussed today. And of course, we also have a lot of demos in Microsoft Teams and Office 365. So, Marijn, tell us a little bit about digital transformation.
Okay, so as people of planet Earth, you probably have known that for the last 6 to 7 months, there's this little bug that is, yeah, and commander of everything that we do these days. I had so many customers where I was trying to sell them Teams. So I've got a bunch of customers as a consultant, and I was really trying to get them on Teams. And they were always saying, we don't need that. You know, 6 years ago, you installed SharePoint for us, and that's so new 6 years ago that we're not ready to go to Teams just yet. And we don't want it, and we don't care about it. It's not something that we need. And then in February, this little bug hit us, and my phone was going crazy all the time because everybody was calling me, hey, Marijn, Teams, you need to come and install Teams. You need to roll it out with us. You need to do some governance stuff. So everybody was jumping on the Teams bandwagon. And that, if you look at the funny images that I posted here, that COVID-19 really was the breakthrough thing that companies needed to go full digital, because of course the offices were all closed, everybody had to work from home. So that means that we need to have awesome tools to allow anyone to work from home. And Teams was definitely or is definitely one of the top tools that can do that. So if we're looking at the numbers for Teams, you will see that this is an old slide. So the numbers are going exponentially on. It's crazy how fast that growth is. In March, Microsoft said we've got 44 million daily users. Awesome. Wow, that's crazy. Then in July at the Build conference, Satya Nadella said, no, we've got 75 million daily users. So it is rising so fast. Teams is getting adopted worldwide at all kinds of customers and all kinds of organizations, big, small, government, everybody is running Teams. And that's also why there are so many Teams conferences, for example. I love the fact that we now have Teams Fest. This is a Teams only conference. So Teams is really necessary, is needed, is adopted in the space. So this is actually the start of our session. Everybody is already using Teams. So if we need to roll out other tools, because we also need to do other things if we want people to work from home. I had a few customers where we had to set up a VPN project so that people could work from home and still be connected to the network of the company from home. We had a few projects where we needed to change how the help desk worked, or how people could send in tickets. I had to set up some bookings things as well for a number of customers where they needed to be able to book some time with a coach, or to be able to book meeting rooms, because they can't just walk in anymore. They need to be like 1.5 meters of distance between everyone. And then there was even a timesheet application. So these are all applications that are very necessary to people that we need to roll out. And the whole idea of this session is that we can use Teams to help people onboard these other projects.
Okay, let's see now how you can support a project rollout. So first of all, you need a place to find information about the new project, the new tool or application that you will adopt in the company. And you also need to provide information why you are rolling out a new tool. Employees need to understand the why at the beginning, and also they need to understand how do they do certain things, how do they register for a training, where they find information, who they contact, what is their contact person for different questions. And it's also it's a lot about communication, how we communicate with people. You also need to provide to your end users a platform to ask questions, not only a platform where you share information. So it should be a bidirectional communication channel. And your end users should also know who can help them with. Is it the IT department, or do you have a power user community where power users can help employees? There are different models how you can do it, but the most important information is that you need to communicate all the things to your users. Also, you will have for the knowledge management recurring questions. So everyone is asking the same question: how do I start the new tool? Where do I get a report? These are a common question, and it makes sense to have a place where you can store an FAQ, to store all the questions that are clear from the beginning, but also questions that come during the rollout. Maybe also topics you haven't thought about, or problems, errors. So you should have a place where you can manage all these things. And it makes sense when you roll out a project to also have a plan. So have a clear rollout plan that includes the communication, that has milestones depending on the size of the company. You will also have different phases, or you will roll out for different groups. And this needs a little bit planning in advance. Like I said, depending on the size of the company, it would be much more easier for a company with 500 employees than with a company with, I don't know, 10,000 people. And that's a thing you really need to think about, and we will also talk a little bit about it later. Marijn,
well, that's all good. Yes, so we are gonna roll out other applications. That's cool. So what are the tools that we can use for that? So some time ago, well, long time ago, I was rolling out SharePoint, and one of the things that we created was, for example, a SharePoint Academy, which was a SharePoint site about SharePoint. So this was still in the classic view, but this was actually like some kind of communication site where we would talk all about what SharePoint is, how people can work with SharePoint, what are the people that you can talk to, when are the trainings happening, all kinds of background information that you can request as well. So can't we just do something like this? I mean, there are such awesome templates that we now have for modern communication sites. So can't we just use communication site instead of setting up teams?
Yes, of course, we could do that. But maybe you have to know that Teams is not SharePoint. Teams is SharePoint and a little bit more. So if we just talk about a communication site and we take a look on the definition of the communication site, it's a site where you can broadcast information to a broad audience. This means that you don't have this bidirectional, that's two-way communication. And you also want your employees, your end users to provide feedback, to communicate, to ask questions. So if you're just using a communication site, I'm not sure if you will fulfill all requirements for rolling out the new tool. So you also need to have additional options or alternatives. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So I can do better communication, two-way communication if I'm using Teams. I get that. But what about Yammer? So Office 365 is big. There are so many applications. So can't I just roll out Yammer if I want to do that? Because Yammer has this thing where I posted this screenshot. It's the place where you can ask a question. And then you can say, okay, if anybody replied, this is the best answer, I want to mark that. And we could even put that Yammer thing on a SharePoint page with a web part that is working some of the time. So would that be a better alternative than Teams?
Of course, you could do it with Yammer. If your organization already uses Yammer, it's easy. And it's maybe also not a bad idea to integrate Yammer in a SharePoint communication site. But if you don't have Yammer in your company and you just rolled out Teams, your employees just adopted Teams. Yeah, they also had some challenges with adopting Teams. Now they have this new tool, and you say, "Good, we have another new tool, Yammer." Maybe it's not the best idea, and maybe also it's not a company's strategy to introduce Yammer at this point. So when you think about Teams, you also have options to store documents. So if you roll out a new tool, you will have documents, you will have videos, you will have a lot of information, and you will also automate some processes like the registration process for trainings. Yeah, and you can do all the things with Microsoft Teams.
You know, that makes sense. So if I haven't rolled out Yammer, why would I roll out Yammer to onboard other applications? Also, for me as a consultant, if a company, if you have got one of those greenfield companies, so they're not doing anything with Office 365, they want to start with Office 365, I would never say roll out any Yammer and Teams. I would just say, okay, just roll out Teams. Just go with Teams, forget about Yammer. Maybe there are people that have other ideas about that, and that's perfectly fine. Some people will still go with Yammer, but I don't think there's a place, just like in the old Western movies, this town is not big enough for the both of us. So both Yammer and Teams in the organization, I don't think that's working anyway, because then people will ask, okay, when do I put something on Yammer? When do I put something on Teams? It could be difficult. So basically, why would you want to use Teams as a platform to manage change in the organization or to support the adoption of other applications? Well, mainly, so COVID made me use Teams. I think we need to have t-shirts that say something like that, like COVID made me use it, COVID made me do it. Everybody's using Teams right now, so it is a familiar application. It's got the whole Office 365 power behind it, so we've got the Power Platform, we've got SharePoint. Also, if you're looking at the IT standpoint, it would just be one less app that you would support. So, oh yeah, so exactly, that's the most important part of the slide that I just missed. Corinna, show me how it can be done in Teams.
Yes, of course, I can do that. So you should now see my Teams in the browser. So for the first site, it's pretty easy. I have created 2 teams. The first team is the Easy Time timesheet rollout. This is the team for the employees that need to adopt the new tool. And the second team, Project Easy Time, that's just the organizational team for the project for preparing the rollout. I will not focus on the second one because I think every one of you already knows how to work in a project with Microsoft Teams. You have documents, you have the planner, you have the conversations, you have meetings. I will not focus on this one, so we focus on the rollout. We also have here a couple of channels. These are only examples of channels you could use, but from we experienced that it really makes sense to have a team with a channel Ask Your Question. So a channel with this name, so users can understand at the first sight, okay, this is the channel where I can go and ask my questions, and someone from the project team or maybe my colleagues can help me with my question. Of course, you will also have probably another platform, we will see also later, like a portal where you have all information at one place, but you should also provide this bidirectional channel that we talked at the beginning about. Another channel could be saying hello and maybe also talking about the experiences with the new tool, and also a channel with events and trainings. It really makes sense that to have this channel where you can announce all new events and trainings. Of course, you have a portal, but it's easier if you have here the channel where you can announce it to link to a registration form or something like this. And of course, you could also have private channels where you can have maybe a group, a private channel for the power users of the new adopted tool. And another thing also you could think about is, for example, in the general channel, you can set up the moderator role, and to allow in a channel, like in the general, to post new conversations only for moderators. So only moderators can post new conversations, and you have kind of moderated channel if you don't want that everyone posts everything everywhere. Yeah, so this is the quick overview of a team. We will also take a look later on the extensions with other Office 365 tools. But let's go back to the slides. Marijn, what about the rest of the Office 365 ecosystem?
Well, Corinna, can I first ask you a question? Because Sarah asked the question in the chat, like, what relation has this kind of team with a champion team?
So a champion team is of course more for the champions, and generally when you start adopting a new tool, you start with building up the champions. So normally you build them up at the beginning. Sometimes you will get new champions during the adoption, but you also have the normal end user that is not a champion, and maybe the normal end user sometimes don't want to go to a champion to ask him a question, or he don't know who is a champion, where can I ask a question. And then you could use a channel like this to say, okay, every user can post here his question, and in the best case a champion would answer his question, not the IT support team. And in this way you can also connect the champions and the end users better with each other.
All right, so my take on this is if you're running a champions program as well, you could either set that up as a private channel in that team or create a separate channel. Kind of depends on how you want to work. They both have some pros and contras to do. So yeah, that could be an idea. So what I definitely want to take a look at as well is, so we can talk about Teams as a perfect place to onboard, but of course we also have that Microsoft 365 ecosystem that is behind all this, that is driving all that innovation. And if we're talking about Office 365, I'm always using this periodic table that Matt Wade built. I just like how it looks. I always use this for my customers as well. So if we really take a look at which applications can help us drive that adoption, then we go to the next slide. There we go. Then we can really see these would be applications that could help us drive that adoption of other applications. So for example, we've got Sway. If people are listening to my podcast with Steve, the Office 365 Distilled podcast, little commercial break here, you would already know what my opinion is about Sway, but Sway can allow you to create awesome looking web presentations. Of course, you've got PowerPoint to create presentations. You can use Word and Excel to do things. You can use your whiteboard to show things, so to draw things in a meeting. You can have your forms in your Power Apps to create surveys, to create request forms. Power Virtual Agents is a super powerful thing that can let you create chatbots. So if you want to do your Q&A, or if you have frequently asked questions, you can connect that virtual agent with it, and then people can actually do the chat with the chatbot, and the chatbot can ask their questions to the chatbot. The chatbot can reply with answers that it can get from your knowledge management. I also think that at some point Project Cortex will be awesome in supporting that as well. So we can automate certain processes. We can create dashboards with Power BI, looking at the analysis of the rate of our adoption. For example, we can use bookings to book one-on-ones with experts, with trainers, with classroom training systems. We have Yammer, we have Teams, we talked about that. We've got our Outlook, of course. We've got SharePoint to support all the documents. And then we've got Stream to where we can record all our videos. Now, of course, for the people that have been listening to all the Ignite commercials, it will now also be possible to set up a system where when you record your meeting in Teams, that it could also be saved into your OneDrive instead of Stream, so that it will be easier for you to share it with external people, to manage it better, but also, for example, to have less problems with the limited amount of disk space that Stream gives you. So these are all applications that you can actively use to support your adoption of other projects. And Corinna is gonna give you a really deep dive, awesome demo in how some of these applications could support you with that.
Okay, let's take another look back to Teams and to the other applications. So like we've said, we've created a team for the adoption. And as you know, every team has documents, and the documents are stored in SharePoint. So every team already has a SharePoint site. It makes sense to also use this SharePoint site to provide information at this point. So here in the team, we've also linked the SharePoint portal that is built for this team in every channel. So if you go in the tab Rollout Portal, you can find then all the portal with all its functions, and the same also in the other channels. Let's take a look on the portal here directly in the browser. So building up a SharePoint site, it's pretty easy. Maybe some of you already know. But the more important thing here is also to integrate other Office 365 tools, like for example, using Power Automate. Maybe also, as you know, in Office 365, actually there is no out-of-the-box solution for training registration. And in every company, if maybe you don't have a central portal for trainings, then you could build this training registration in with Power Automate and SharePoint. Let me just show you what we've done here. So for registering for training, if you go on the icon in the back, it's just a simple, let's say, stupid SharePoint list or Microsoft list. You could also do this with the Microsoft list, and that's the same. And then you just, the form is also not the prettiest one. That's just because it's the standard item form for Microsoft lists and SharePoint. You could make this look prettier with Power Apps, for example. And so when the user registers for the training, he needs to select an option. And as you can see here, okay, now there is only one training available. The user could select one training. It would be very nice if you also have this automated. So the idea is the admin, the administrator of this site, so the project team, has a list with trainings. So now, as you can see here in the drop-down, we just have one meeting at the 28th of October. That's this one. So now, as a training admin, you could add new trainings, and these trainings will be automatically added in the drop-down for the training registration. So if you automate this process, after that, you just, from the project team side, you just need to add new trainings, and your employees can register automatically. So what I would do now, I would say, okay, let's say easy time. Introduction. Let's make the introduction. And let's start, let's say tomorrow is the training at 9 a.m. I could also add an end time if I want. Let's say, okay, it's 11 a.m. and now I can save it. So this entry automatically is added for the end user that registers for the training. And now he could also select the new added training. And let's also see what happens in the back. So here I added a new training. And yeah, let's take a look in the Power Automate. So here we have a flow named training announcement. Let's take a look in the flow just to show you how easy it is to create a flow like this. So when a new training is added, like I've added it in the list, then internally a time conversion needs to be done. And after that, I will automatically create with the flow a Teams meeting for the training. And I will also give this meeting ID to my list here. That's just a meeting ID for internal use. And when the employee registers for the training, he automatically gets an email confirmation. He can get a chat in Microsoft Teams. And of course, he gets the invitation for the training. So the first flow, like you've seen, it's just for adding the new training. Let's go back and let me show you the second flow. So now let me just refresh, and now I can select the introduction we just created and say, okay, the end user has registered. This view, actually, maybe you don't want to see all the training registrations in your company. You could also solve it in other way. If you work with Power Apps, you could solve it in a much more nicer. You could also use this form with Microsoft Forms, but the problem is when you use Microsoft Forms in processes like this, you cannot automate it so properly like you would do it with SharePoint. That's why we don't use forms here. Okay, now I've registered for the training, and let me take you to the second flow. Yes, training registration. And if I take a look in this flow, it's also easy like the other one. When a user registers for a training, I will get the training ID to know what invitation I will send to him. I will send him an email confirmation. I will send him also a message in Microsoft Teams. I don't know, probably it doesn't make sense to make both, but you could decide if you want to send him in Teams or send him an email. Here you have different options to do that. And then I will get this meeting and invite the attendee to the new training. So that's the automation we're doing. And so if you take a look here in Microsoft Teams, I've just received a chat message here at 12:30, registration confirmation for the introduction training. That's the message I received here. And also I also have a mail. Here, that's the email confirmation. You can also make the email confirmation. You can format it and make it a little bit nicer. And I should also have received an invitation to the training. Now you will not see it here because I've created the invitation. So when I create a new meeting, I cannot receive the invitation. But if you look in the calendar, you will see here, Easy Time Introduction. That's the meeting I have just created, and that was it was automatically added to my calendar. And that's the way you can automate very easy a training registration process. And of course, you can do this also with a lot of other stuff, other things. Imagine that you have intensive trainings that you have maybe a full day training, and there are only 10 or 15 persons allowed. So you will have a limit for the training registration. Also you can also integrate this limit in your process. And of course, you can do also other crazy stuff like doing a new registration. That's also very common because employees need to consent for the newsletter to be added to a newsletter list. And this is a really simple use case you could do with forms. Now it's already pre-selected because I've just filled it out, and it's just saved from before. Yeah, so, and of course you could here at this point you could integrate stream videos. If you have videos in the company, you can store these videos in the stream portal, and then you can just integrate them here in a rollout page. And believe me, when you roll out a new tool, there will be a lot of questions. There will be a lot of information, and if you're just using Microsoft Teams, sometimes the information gets lost because you also need a structure, a page where you find everything at one here. And also here on the start page, you can see the list of the trainings, and this is also a thing you could also make it look a little bit nicer, for example, with list and column formatting for Microsoft lists and SharePoint lists. Yeah, and one more tip I want to give to you is if you don't know how to build up a page like this or build up the design, if you need inspiration for building up the design and the layout of a page like this, there is the SharePoint lookbook by Microsoft, and you get inspiration for different layouts and types of sites in SharePoint Online. Okay, so back to you, Marijn.
See, that is why I love doing sessions with Corinna. I mean, how crazy was that demo? And I fully agree with Susan McClemens, who said that those are great ideas. You should create a blog post around these, and I absolutely agree with that. Yes. So next few slides is just to give you some inspiration on how you can use that Office 365 ecosystem to support your rollout as well. So most of a number of these things you've already seen. So for example, you can use your analytics part in Teams or in SharePoint to also drive your dashboard. So you probably want to report, you want to follow up on how your adoption is going. And in those analytics parts will definitely have numbers that you can actually use to drive that adoption or to make it go smoother. Power apps and forms can definitely be used. For example, one of my customers has locations worldwide, and we've got a big champions thing going on as well. And what we did was all champions across the world, they could request if they wanted to have posters sent, so specific posters printed on high quality, and we would have them printed in one location, then send out worldwide to all the locations. You can have stream channels, for example. Your Power Automate can do a lot of things. Next slide has some more things as well. So, for example, this is something that I set up for a customer. It is happening in SharePoint, but I just wanted to show how you could use conditional formatting, for example. So those purple blocks that you see here, these are courses that people can take. These are all linking to something else, but all that information is coming from a list. And what I did was I used one of the templates that you can find on GitHub for doing the conditional formatting for your course items. I changed that a little bit, and then it could just look like this. So you could have pages like this, which would show the correct items for those specific building blocks. So that's how you can use that conditional formatting. There is one slide that should be, if you just go back one slide, there should be a slide in between. No, okay, that doesn't matter. There was a question in the beginning of the session to ask around how you could drive digital literacy within your organization while using Teams. And while Corinna was doing her demo, I actually added this slide in there, but that's not showing up, no worries. For a customer of mine, we were doing a digital literacy project. So it was a smaller company, and every day at 10:30, everyone would just gather in the main room to drink their coffee, have a little biscuit, and just chat away. And we said, okay, we're gonna organize cookies and coffee, cookies and knowledge sessions. So what that means is you bring your coffee, we will supply you with cookies, and we will supply you with knowledge. So you just go to one of our big meeting rooms, you just sit down with your coffee, you take one of our free cookies, and we will give you in 10 minutes a short session on how to log on on Teams, a session on how you can record your meetings, a session on how you can change your signature in your email, stuff like that. So the cost would be a bag of cookies, so very low cost, 10 minutes time, like this short burst of knowledge that you would put in there. Now, of course, with Corona, with COVID, people are working from home. What we did was we set up a team called Cookies and Knowledge. We couldn't give people cookies, but we did that 2 times during the year. We sent people a bag of cookies that they could use while they were going at 10:30 every once a week. So we would organize a 10-minute session. You can join, it's not mandatory. We have the recording, so people could join, go in there, drink their own coffee at home, use one of the cookies that we send them, and listen to a 10-minute knowledge management session. So that was that. As a wrap up, I think the most important bit here is COVID made me use Teams, and that's a given, that's a fact. So many people are using Teams, 75 million people worldwide. So let's use that knowledge, let's use that thing that is happening to drive that adoption of other projects, of other programs. So people already know the tool, they can already work with it. It's not new, it's not a big limitation, so they can already do it. And listen to Corinna or contact Corinna if you want to know more about those crazy cool things that you can automate on how to do the training part and the other things. Corinna,
so
it's for you to say goodbye.
Thank you also from my side. And thank you, Marijn, for the wrap up and doing the session together with me. If you have any questions, we still have time for questions, I hope, Michael. And we would be very happy if you can rate our session. And also, if you have questions afterwards, don't hesitate to contact us on the known channels. Thank you.